The council has begun examining County Executive Ike Leggett's proposed operating budget for the next fiscal year. This year, the council is holding 5 public hearings that are already underway. Council President Nancy Florine says the council is already being asked to implement the proposed increase in the energy tax as early as next month.
This is a changing environment right now. We've gotten some bad news on the distribution of income tax from the state of Maryland just recently, which we're looking to see if we have to change our assumptions about the revenue that we can anticipate for next year. So as a result of that, there may well be some additional changes in the budget that we really dive into next week. On the 13th, we will receive a fiscal briefing from our staff director, Steve Farber, and that will review the bidding. The changes that have been occurring in the fiscal environment, how the county executive budget proposals fit into that. The General Assembly will have just concluded its session. We'll know how Montgomery County makes out as a result of their deliberations. And we will finally have all the pieces to a constantly changing puzzle before us. This is going to be a really important briefing, and I've invited the Board of Education, the Board of Montgomery College, the Planning Board, and the board that oversees the Housing Opportunities Commission to join us so that they see the extent of our fiscal challenge. This is a really unique environment that we're operating in right now because so many of the assumptions have altered just in the past month or so in terms of how much revenue we're getting this year, how much we can reasonably expect to receive next year, and how that's going to affect our ability to deliver the kinds of services we've prided ourselves on for years.
A report that takes a comprehensive look at housing programs in Montgomery County has been presented to the council. The report includes the level of funding and staffing resources for these programs, as well as duplication and coordination between them. Councilmember Mark Elrich commissioned the study.
The reason I did it is because I knew that we were running housing programs out of Health and Human Services, Department of Housing and Community Development, and HOC. And it struck me that do we really need 3 different departments running housing programs? And so I wanted to know what's being run, is there overlap, to what extent, are they totally separate and apart, and are there any opportunities for combination? So sort of the beginning nexus out of it. I think what we got is a very, very comprehensive overview of what everybody does. Probably the best presentation of what all the programs are that I've ever seen. I think the question that I didn't get answered, or is not answered yet, is whether we could accomplish this, if we could accomplish what's being accomplished by consolidating programming into a single department. And that's what I want to know, because to me that's the critical question. Where we are faced with very, very difficult economic times. People around here talk about silos, and we don't know what the other group's doing. And it strikes me as we have got to look for every opportunity we have to consolidate operations into single departments and minimize the amount of overhead, the amount of supervisory personnel. So I think this will open the opportunity for us to actually say, it doesn't make sense to start consolidating these functions.
A report just released by the Council's Office of Legislative Oversight found that in 2009, just under 1% of the county's students were considered habitually truant. By state standards, that means those students had unexcused absences for more than 1/5 of the school year, or 36 days. But a new program just launched in Montgomery County is trying to reach out to these students before they miss too much school. The Truancy Court pilot program is aimed at improving student attendance by discovering the root causes of truancy and assisting families with issues that impact attendance. This voluntary program, which is funded by a federal grant, pairs students with a judge who works with them for 10 weeks to discover why so much school is being missed. Councilmember Valerie Irvin requested the truancy report. She says it truly does take a village to raise a child.
And that exactly is why we are all here today, to make a difference in the lives of children. The goal of the Truancy Court program is to improve student attendance by discovering the root causes of truancy and assisting students and their families with issues that impact attendance. This preventative program, which is funded by a federal grant, pairs students with a volunteer judge who meets with students for 10 weeks to determine why a child repeatedly misses school. Students who may not otherwise listen to an adult will often sit up and take notice when they appear before a judge. Once we have their attention, then the real work starts with the Truancy Court team figuring out why students are not fully participating in school and by planning appropriate interventions to turn this behavior around.
Officials were on hand to kick off the pilot program at Key Middle School in Silver Spring. The program is being tested at Key and Neilsville Middle School, where some of the county's highest truancy rates prevail. The new Montgomery program works with students who have between 5 and 20 unexcused absences in a school year. Officials hope reaching out to kids in middle school could correct behaviors before they become routine.
We are actually looking at young people before they really become chronic problems. We're not talking about the kids who are at the back end who have basically abandoned their education. We are really trying to intercede at an earlier stage with young people to try to moderate that kind of behavior, to get them to re-engage in their education as early as they possibly can. Some might say, why does the state's attorney for Montgomery County care about truancy in schools? Well, I hope it's because it's intelligent social policy that allows us to look proactively at making sure young people in our community do not engage in risky behaviors.
Though the Truancy Court program has been underway for just a month, improvements are already being seen. So far, there have been 0 tardies, and participants from Key Middle School have yet to miss a day. Though on paper, Montgomery's truancy statistics don't show a real problem, Superintendent Jerry Weiss says officials want to be proactive.
This is an emergent issue. Our state defines habitually truant so wide you could drive a truck through it. So when we talk about 1%, that doesn't encompass the problem. Because there's a lot of other kids that don't fit in the category, but they're headed that way.
Well, that wraps it up for this edition of the Council in Brief. For County Cable Montgomery, I'm Susan Kennedy. Thanks for joining us.